Two of the world's leading causes of death are cardiovascular disease and cancer. While they are two separate diseases, they have similar risk factors, suggesting that they have a biological commonality. The following slides discuss the risk factors and the way that these diseases have a negative impact on society. The system that circulates blood through the body via the heart, arteries, and veins is called the cardiovascular system. The veins carry blood to the heart, and arteries carry blood away from the heart. When a blockage of a coronary artery occurs, a heart attack is imminent. Blood pressure is the force that blood exerts on the arterial walls. High blood pressure occurs when there is too much force exerted, which increases the risk for a heart attack or stroke. High blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, and high cholesterol are all components of cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in the United States, causing the loss of one life every 40 seconds. There are multiple factors that increase or decrease the risk of cardiovascular disease. Some of the risk factors can be changed, while other risk factors are hereditary. Risk factors that cannot be changed are genetics, or a family history of cardiovascular disease, and age. People over the age of 55 have a higher risk for stroke incidence, and people over the age of 65 have a higher risk for heart attacks. Gender is also included as a risk factor, as men are more at risk than women for cardiovascular disease. Ethnicity is also counted as a risk factor, as African Americans have a higher risk, while American Indians and Alaskan Natives have a lower risk. Modifiable risk factors include the use of tobacco, being overweight or obese, lack of exercises, and the foods that we consume. Cardiovascular disease and cancer cost the United States billions of dollars each year. 1 in every 6 healthcare dollars are spent on cardiovascular disease. Heart disease and strokes cost about $316.6 billion in healthcare costs and lost productivity in 2011. Cancer costed an estimated $124 billion in 2010, which is predicted to increase 39% by 2020 to $173 billion. As the population age increases, cancer costs will also increase. Cardiovascular disease is referred to as the disease of affluence. There is a correlation between the related risk factors being prevalent within high-income countries and rarely present in low-income countries. The high-income countries are affected by their higher socioeconomic position. The graph shows how a person's socioeconomic position plays a part in increasing the risk for cardiovascular disease. Cancer is the abnormal or atypical uncontrolled growth of cells. Cancer is the name given to a collection of related diseases. In all types of cancer, some of the body's cells begin to divide without stopping and spread into the surrounding tissues. If left untreated, cancer causes death. Common risk factors for cancer and cardiovascular disease include tobacco use, lack of exercise, obesity, genetics, and diet. Genetics is the only non-modifiable risk factor that cancer and cardiovascular disease share. Some carcinogens in the environment are both modifiable and non-modifiable. For example, the naturally occurring carcinogen of ultraviolet rays is modified by using sunblock or staying inside when UV rays are strongest. However, the human body needs the sunlight to produce vitamin D, and therefore must be exposed to some extent to the harmful UV rays. Chemicals ingested with food is another modifiable and non-modifiable carcinogen. Choosing healthy foods with less compounds added, we can reduce our intake of chemicals. However, the human body also needs food to survive. Therefore, we are unable to completely remove this carcinogen as a risk factor. By changing our behavior, we can have an impact on what happens to us in our lives. While we are not able to completely eradicate the risks for cardiovascular disease and cancer, we can make a difference by lowering our risk factors. Changing what and how we eat has a long and short-term effect on our lives. The compounds that we ingest when we eat fried foods raises our risk for cardiovascular disease and cancer and should only be eaten once in a while. According to researcher Dr. Luc Dejoyce, a healthy diet consists of fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains, and is low in saturated fat, red meat, salt, and fried foods. Obesity is another risk factor that we can control. Obesity creates a need for a higher metabolic cardiac output, which causes stress on the cardiovascular system. One study states that obesity raises the risk for cancer even without the genetic abnormalities or comorbid conditions associated with cardiovascular disease. As for cancer, data suggests that up to 20% of malignancies could be related to weight gain, and obesity. A healthy waistline is below 35 inches for women and below 40 inches for men. Exercise is also a vital part of reducing the risk for cardiovascular disease and cancer. Multiple studies published in 2011 provided evidence that exercise reduces cardiovascular disease risk factors by improving systolic blood pressure, blood glucose levels, body mass index, and HDL-C, also known as good cholesterol. Tobacco use is a risk factor that impacts not only the user, but also the people within the vicinity of the user. CDC states that tobacco use is the leading preventable cause of death, disease, and disability in the United States. Tobacco use raises the risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer. The multiple risk factors of tobacco use, obesity, sedentary lifestyles, diet, and exercise can be controlled to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease or cancer. Research shows that there are 7 healthy habits linked to the prevention of cardiovascular disease and cancer. Number 1, be active. Number 2, keep a healthy weight. Number 3, eat a healthy diet. Number 4, keep safe blood sugar levels. Number 5, manage your cholesterol. Number 6, keep your blood pressure down. Number 7, don't smoke or use tobacco. You can prevent cancer and cardiovascular disease by modifying your behavior and lowering your risk factors.